We are recognizing International Fraud Awareness Week, and this is a week that is set aside November the 12th through the 18th, and it is an effort by the government and industry stakeholders to bring awareness to the tremendous problem of fraud that we are seeing everywhere.
How big a problem is fraud, not only in Louisiana, but nationwide and also internationally?
So fraud is very common, and unfortunately, fraud is increasing. In 2022, the Federal Trade Commission issued a statement that fraud losses increased over 22% just in that year alone, and we saw over 3 million people become victims of fraud. Now, while fraud shows no favor to any demographic, our elderly people, particularly over the age of 60, are definitely more prone to become a victim of fraud. Again, in 2021-2022 timeframe, over 3 million people over the age of 60 reported that they were a victim of fraud during that time frame, and average losses to the victim of fraud were about $35,000. So the numbers are just huge.
Tell us, why is it important for people to be vigilant about fraud?
So it's very important for us to be vigilant about it. This is one of the things that we want people to be talking about. Conversations at the water cooler and at church and at home should be about all of the fraud schemes that we're seeing right now, because we really believe that the only way to put a stop to it is to bring awareness. So that's why Blue Cross makes tremendous efforts all year long, but particularly at this time of year, because there are so many different opportunities to become a victim of fraud right now. For example, we are right in the middle of open enrollment and annual enrollment for both Medicare Advantage plans and the federal marketplace. And that certainly puts everyone at risk of receiving one of those cold phone calls, or maybe even a visit to your home or church, or just someone stopping you in the community trying to steal your information, trying to switch you to a different plan. And the advice that I would give is just don't engage people. If it's a number that you don't recognize on your call, on your phone, don't answer that call. If you're solicited in person, just don't engage with that person whatsoever. We want people to learn to be rude, which is such a strange thing for us to say, especially in the South. We want everyone to be kind, but my advice and Blue Cross's advice is the opposite, especially at this time of year. There are just too many opportunities for people to seek you out, ask for your financial information, ask for your Medicare number. You may get a cold phone call that says that they're calling from Blue Cross, or they're calling from your doctor's office or your health plan, and don't engage in them. Hang up, call a number that you know to be that entity's real phone number, and engage in them in that way.
Do you have some tips on ways people can avoid fraud?
I do. So I think the most important way that we can avoid fraud is to be aware that it's out there. So we need to be conscientious and make sure that we are protecting especially the elderly people in our families, our friends, family members, neighbors, grandparents. Make sure that they understand that if they receive a cold phone call, they should not be giving out their information. Again, don't engage with people that they don't know. Even if they receive correspondence in the mail, look through their mail if you have an elderly person in your family, and make sure there aren't offers there for them to switch their health plan and that kind of thing.
What about calls that give the person a sense of urgency?
So urgency is a huge red flag. Anytime someone is pressuring you to act quickly, you can't even hang up the phone call. You can't consider this. You need to act on this right now. That is a huge red flag, and you should definitely walk away from anything that wants you to act quickly. If you're approached with something like that, hang up the phone, engage with someone in your family, talk to someone about it, double check the facts before you commit to anything.
Now, what should you do if you think you've been a victim of fraud?
So the most important thing to do if you believe that you've been a victim of fraud is to report it. Reporting fraud as quickly as possible, whether it's to local, state, or federal authorities. If you're a Blue Cross member, of course, we want you to report to us on our fraud hotline at Blue Cross, but make someone aware of it. We see many instances where particularly elderly people are embarrassed if they feel like they've been a victim of fraud. They don't want to tell anyone about it, and that's the worst thing that you can possibly do. You need to report it widely as soon as you think that you have been a victim so that someone can take action.
What about the role of artificial intelligence? How is that impacting scams?
So unfortunately, like everything else, as new schemes develop, they're pulling whatever the latest and greatest technology is into the scheme. We're certainly seeing artificial intelligence. This actually happened inside my own family. An elderly member of our family received a phone call with a young person's voice that sounded just like my son, saying, I'm in jail, I need money, please send me money as quickly as possible. And at the time we thought it was just a coincidence. It wasn't really my son's voice, but it probably was. It was probably an AI generated version of his voice. So we definitely want to make sure that people are not acting on what appears to be a family member in distress. You know, I'm trapped, or I'm in jail, I need money. Again, it's that sense of urgency, pulling on people's heartstrings. So we definitely want people to walk away from those scenarios.
And what should people do if they think they're a victim of fraud?
If they believe that they're a victim of fraud, they need to report it as quickly as they possibly can. Local, state, federal authorities, anyone who's a member of Blue Cross Blue Shield should, of course, report it to our fraud and abuse hotline. And that gives the authorities an opportunity to act quickly, and that's the best way to prevent especially financial losses.